Well, let's talk about some councillors serving mammoth 7-year terms. This is the fact that the Conservatives and Reform UK accusing Labour of running scared of voters after Sir Keir Starmer's ministers opened the door for 63 councils to scrap, or more accurately, postpone next May's elections. Let's speak to the Shadow Local Government Secretary, Sir James Cleverly. James, thank you for joining me this morning. Will you be asking Conservative councils to say no to this?
Well, that's exactly the position we've taken. Kemi's made it clear, I've made it clear, and a number of our council leaders have already said publicly they are not going to be asking for these elections to be delayed. Elections are the foundation stone of democracy, and we have conducted elections in some of the most challenging, difficult times. Labour set about, I think, in a very naive and arrogant way, to try and completely restructure England's local government. And they've realised they've bitten off more than they can chew. I think allied to that, they are tanking in the polls and are looking for any excuse to delay those elections so they can't be held to account. And final point is they're trying to shift the blame onto local councils by saying, oh, you can ask us, which sounds fair, but where you recognise that those councils under the new funding settlement have been squeezed on money, those county councils have been squeezed, the money's being sent to Labour-run urban boroughs, that this reorganisation has been forced upon them, the pace has been forced upon them, so Labour are squeezing councils in a vice and then blaming those councils, and I don't think the British people are buying it.
Can you guarantee that no Conservative council will ask for these elections to be postponed?
So I'm not in a position to say that just yet, because, as I say, a lot of councils have been painted into a real corner by the Labour government. Our position is that we shouldn't be cancelling these elections, and if there are councils, Conservative-run councils, that feel that they are being forced into a position that they're not comfortable with, I will talk to them about what we can do to make sure that those elections can go ahead. Hand on heart, I can't give you an absolute 100% guarantee at the moment, but the bottom line is the Conservative Party position is elections matter and the elections next year should go ahead.
Because if they are postponed by a Conservative administration, surely that's going to open you to charges of hypocrisy. I totally understand that a local council may say, look, our needs are that this election should be postponed. But for so many people, if your message nationally is that this shouldn't happen, that's going to cause a problem for you. I'm sure you'll work that out as time goes on. Why do you think the Labour government announced this yesterday? The timing, I mean.
So, Peter, you've worked behind the scenes. You know how
take out the trash day.
This is take out the trash day. This is where a government dumps all the bad news on the last working day of Parliament. Now, MPs don't stop working. I'm working here talking to you, and I'll be in my constituency talking to my voters later on today. But what happens is the parliamentary machine pauses until the new year, which means that questions don't get answered until we come back into the new year. Ministers don't come to the dispatch box until the new year. The press can't grill ministers properly until the new year. It's called taking out the trash day because you dump all the bad news over on the last working day of Parliament in the hope people don't notice. But people have noticed, and they are furious.
Will you be tabling an urgent question to, as soon as Parliament gets back, to try to get to the bottom of why this decision was made and announced in that way?
Absolutely, and there are a load of things. So as I say, it went slightly below the radar, but the proposed changes to local government funding, and Neil O'Brien, a good friend and colleague, has created a really good heat map, which is available on my social media feeds and his, which shows that basically Labour is starving rural councils of money to cross-subsidise inefficient Labour-run urban councils. It's incredibly cynical. Again, that was squeezed out in the last day or two of this parliamentary session. They are really hurting local government, and then they are blaming local government for the actions of this Labour Party.
Can I ask you, in your position as a former Foreign Secretary, the person who was overseeing MI6, about this big story in The Sun today about the Chinese hack of the Foreign Office, stealing tens of thousands of secret files in an unprecedented Foreign Office breach hushed up by authorities. This was an exclusive by Noah Hoffman in The Sun today. We're speaking to her a little bit later on in the programme. How at risk are we, and should this have been hushed up, or should we have been told about it? Because sometimes I'm probably somewhere in the middle when it comes to transparency, because transparency is incredibly important, but full transparency at all times is probably impossible in government. So I just wonder what you think about that.
So I think your viewers and listeners need to recognise that the British state, the National Health Service, our banking system, our industrial base are under constant attack from hackers. Some of those hackers act independently, some of them are state-sponsored, but we are under constant attack. That's why the Conservatives have said we need a really significant increase on defence spending, and that includes our cyber defences. Now, we're attacked every day, and it is quite rare that those attacks get through and cause the kind of damage that we have seen. And so, you know, we've got to be constantly vigilant, but we have to understand that this is a rarity. Now, I don't know exactly the details as to why this was not made public straight away. There are often very, very good arguments for doing that. Sometimes mitigation, defences, repair work, making sure that we've had a full audit of what information has been stolen so that remedial action can take place. So without knowing the full details, I don't want to be critical of the fact that this was kept quiet, because sometimes there is very good reasons to keep British people safe that this information isn't put into the public domain immediately.
Your leader has said that British boys are not the problem, it's migrants who don't respect women. Surely that misogyny is a problem not just for in foreign cultures, but also in our own culture as well. If you are domestically abused, the majority of people who are involved in domestic abuse cases are people originally from this country. Wasn't she wrong to say that? Is this just dog whistle politics?
I think the point she was making is that adolescence, an incredibly important piece of drama, highlighted an issue, but it's certainly not the whole issue. And the kind of misogyny that is targeting women and girls its critical mass isn't necessarily in young boys at school. So having a high-profile announcement, clearly trying to, I think, you know, make the most out of the message that important drama put in the public domain, I think, and this is the point that Ken was making, was missing a more significant challenge. And I'll give you an example. Sarah Sherif, a 10-year-old girl in Surrey, was tortured and murdered by her father and her stepmother. She started going to school wearing a hijab, even though she was much younger than would normally be expected to wear a hijab. And the teachers noticed that hijab was hiding bruises, but they didn't intervene for fear of being accused of racism. That is a problem that we have to address. So yes, young men being, you know, influenced, radicalized by macho culture online is a problem, but there is a bigger problem, and we should address that bigger problem first, because that is where the government's focus should be, rather than trying to ride a wave from the television drama adolescence.
Just before you go, James, I know you're a former Home Secretary as well, and we've heard in the last few days that globalise the Intifada, or chanting about Intifada, could now be an arrestable offence in London and in Manchester, those two police forces. What I'm trying to get to the bottom of is a story I've been banging on about for quite a while, which is whether shouting "death, death" to the IDF, which Pascal Robinson Foster did, the lead singer of Bob Vylan, should be an arrestable offence. Now, he has been interviewed by Avon and Somerset Police, but he hasn't been charged, and I think they're running down the clock to the 6-month limit for a public order offence. That's how they're treating it. Without getting into the specifics of that case, I wouldn't want to prejudice any form of legal action, as I'm sure you wouldn't. But on the general principle of the fact that people will be arrested in at least 2 policing areas, my first question is, should that be extended to all areas of the UK, so there isn't 2-tier policing? And secondly, would you
line on these obviously anti-Semitic chants? I made the point that if, and I won't use the word that I used in the meeting, but I did use an intentionally provocative word in front of these senior police officers, saying if people were shouting racist tropes aimed at black people, I have no doubt the police would take a very, very firm action. And I felt they weren't acting robustly enough when people were making obviously anti-Semitic chants. That was 18 months ago I was having these conversations. It is frustrating that it's taken this long for them to respond to the calls that I made, and I suspect the calls of the new Home Secretary. And it should be across the country, and we should be robust. And Peter, final point, you're absolutely right. We should be consistent. If you're shouting it in London and you're getting arrested, but if you're shouting it in Essex and you're not getting arrested, that makes no sense to anyone. We should have consistent, robust policing right across the country.
And should people be arrested for saying death, death to the IDF, James?
Well, again, death threats. Look, call me old-fashioned. I don't think people should be shouting death threats. It is clearly, this is focused on Jewish populations, and the idea that somehow that we could run out of the clock, or that even Somerset Police could run out of the clock, I think is concerning. It is a police matter, and I'm not trying to intervene, but these things should be responded to. And also, and I've raised this with the BBC, why was that live feed not pulled?
Yeah,
I've
kept them on for 40 minutes. 40 minutes. Kept them on.
I've still not got a credible answer as to why the editorial team at the BBC covering Glastonbury watched that performance and no one thought, actually, you know what, this is inappropriate. There are plenty of other artists that we could be highlighting from this music festival. How the BBC maintained a blind spot, as you say, for best part of an hour, I still to this day find completely unbelievable.
Thank you, James Cleverly, the Shadow Local Government Secretary, and we veered into areas there. He's a former Home Secretary and Foreign Secretary as well under the Conservatives.